Hello and welcome to Reportage. This is Danish bin Nabi. In today's segment of Reportage, I am joined by author Mr. Harbans Singh, who has written 3 volumes on Kashmir, starting from Maharaja Gulab Singh. And all the 3 volumes have been published by Speaking Tiger. Let's listen into Mr. Harbans Singh. Mr. Harbans, as you know, that the 3 volumes of your book, all the 3 volumes, are very, very comprehensively researched and written. So we have only half an hour, and will try my best to summarize what you have written in all these 3 books. So my first question that I will ask you, and I must ask you, is this: why did Gulab Singh sort of the betrayed the Maharaja Ranjit Singh, with whom he was a very, very close diplomat, general, or prime minister of his regime? Why did he betray Ranjit Singh?
Danish, he never betrayed Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Till his last breath, he was always loyal to Maharaja Ranjit Singh. But we have to. I understand what you are saying. I understand you are alluding to what happened after that, when the Anglo-Sikh War took place. But you have to go into the background of the years following the death of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Lahore Darbar was no longer the Lahore Darbar that Ranjit Singh had built. Ranjit Singh had built a magnificent coalition of all forces where all the communities had equal places. But the successors were incompetent, corrupt, and if I may so remind you, that the Jathedar of the Akal Takht, he was so exasperated by the situation in Lahore that he threatened Rani Jinda to be lashed, that she would be lashed for her immoral and corrupt ways. So you can imagine, I don't need to go into greater detail than this, that this is what the Lahore Darbar was. You cannot be loyal to people who are corrupt and who are morally depraved, and yet hope to save the empire which Maharaja Ranjit Singh had built without any of the qualities that he had.
So it was a diplomatic retreat by Maharaja Gulab Singh.
It was not a diplomatic retreat. He was pushed into that corner. You see, both the brothers lost their lives there. His nephew lost his life. 2 of his sons lost their lives there. Do you still believe that he should have been loyal, as you put it? That loyalty should have been there even after all this? And it wasn't diplomatic retreat. It was a question of survival. How do you survive? He knew that if he had taken side in the Anglo-Sikh War, what would have happened? 2 things. Had the Sikhs won, then the Jathedars would not have let him live. They would have eliminated him sooner or later. And if he had sided with them and British had won, as they did, then British would have taken away his kingdom also, Jammu. So it was not diplomatic, it was the practical, pragmatic need of the time.
Sort of we can call it a strategic retreat.
You can say that, but I wouldn't use the word retreat.
But the strategic retreat only for his own self and his own family. Can we put it like that?
Not just family, for his own people, for his own state. So very painstakingly, he had built not only Jammu. After a very, very long time, Jammu had been united. We must remember that. And after
we had a united Jammu. Which were these areas? Can you kindly explain for the viewers?
No, it wasn't united. It was fragmented. Gulab Singh united, and he gave a single identity to the
basically Gulab Singh united.
Sorry?
Which areas did he unite?
The whole of Jammu region, right from Basoli to Ramnagar to Banihal, Punch. They were all fragmented. There were 22 states.
And it was for the first time under Gulab Singh that a united state was formed.
No, earlier also under Maharaja Ranjit Dev, the state had been united. In fact, at that time, the state had expanded right up to the borders of Kangra. But Gulab Singh united the present Jammu region as we know it, and he gave a single identity to that. And let us not forget that during that period, he had already conquered Ladakh. Ladakh had been made part of Jammu state. You cannot say it was part of India, it was a part of Jammu state at that point of time. The J&K state came into existence later on in 1846, after the Anglo-Sikh War.
So talk a bit about 1846, the Treaty of Amritsar, which is the bone of contention since many years. How did basically that came into being?
I don't know how you say that it was a bone of contention. For me, there is nothing debatable about that. So what happens after a war?
There is no debate on it because it has happened, has happened. I just want to know it historically.
Historically, yes,
it happened?
I'm coming to that. Historically, you know all the wars, whether it is 1870 Anglo-Prussian War, Prussian-German War, and Prussian and Franco War, First World War. After all the wars, war indemnity has to be paid by the loser. English, the East India Company, they had also served notice that you give this much of money or you lose these territories. They had to pay in order to save their kingdom. That is the first treaty of after the Anglo-Sikh War, after the first Anglo-Sikh War, the Treaty of Amritsar. During that treaty, Sikhs, they paid some money, but they were not able to pay the full war indemnity. Now the question was, what do the British do? So they offered that, can Gulab Singh pay that war indemnity? If he can pay the war indemnity, then he can keep the hill states with him. He paid the war indemnity. That is what people have later on, including some of the British priests who came there for conversion of people there in Kashmir. So they launched a propaganda against Maharaja Gulab Singh. That is part of the propaganda when we say that it was a sale deed.
Who are these people who launched this propaganda?
It began with the British. Because
so British began this propaganda.
You have to keep in mind that in 19th century England, the Tories and the Whigs, they were always following different strategies for world domination. One of the group led by Disraeli, they wanted the forward policy, you can say, to conquer as much land as possible, to have direct rule over as much land as possible. And the other was led by Gladstone. So whenever Disraeli was in power, the forward policy of the British was pushed. And whenever Gladstone was in power, then the reaction of the British government was that, hold on. If we can strategically, diplomatically, with the help of the local rulers, if we can rule that area and defend that area, then there is no need to push forward and put all our army on the borders there. So, at the British, because of this dichotomy within their establishment, one of the sections would push this policy. As a result, this thing, I think the first person to mention this was some captain. I'm forgetting his name. He married a local girl in Kashmir, settled there. He pushed this idea. He called this the sale deed. Nobody else has called sale deed. He called it sale deed. And this stuck. Stuck with whom? With people who were in Lahore. We must not forget that Lahore was always against Maharaja Gulab Singh. He was the most powerful lord of Maharaja Ranjit Singh's kingdom, his darbar. And he was by and large during his period also independent. He really stayed in Lahore.
We understand the historicity of it. But on humanitarian grounds, explain to me, what about the people who were inhabiting, who were living there? Were they worth only 75 lakh Nanak Shahis?
Yes. That's war indemnity.
Including the
Otherwise, this land would have been taken over by the East India Company.
And they sold the people, the people in Kashmir Valley only for 75 Nanak Shahis.
Would you say that between the first Anglo-Sikh war and the second Anglo-Sikh war, the land on which the Sikhs ruled, Maharaja Gulab Singh ruled, that was bought land? That was a sale deed. They got it after a sale deed with the British because they had paid the war indemnity. That wasn't a sale deed. This is also not a sale deed.
So you completely negated that it was not a sale deed.
It is not a sale deed. I completely negate it. I reject it.
Okay, let's move
forward. It was war indemnity. I would again insist it was a war indemnity, not a sale deed.
Mr. Harbans' point well taken. Let's move forward. Now the Dogra rule has been established. Now it's in Ladakh region, it's in Jammu region, as well as in Kashmir region. Now, then the majority of the people who were the Muslims have always complained, and it has been written by many Western Western authors, that it was the most repressive regime that Jammu and Kashmir has ever witnessed. How do you respond to such allegations?
I would again say that this is partial. This is a partial assessment because not everybody wrote. There were many travelers who have written glowingly about Gulab Singh. And I'm, in fact, surprised by the glowing tribute some of them have paid, because for the first time, even I realized that he was not just a warrior. He was not just a soldier. He could talk about various aspects of life, just like Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Ranjit Singh was also illiterate. Maharaja Gulab Singh was also not an educated person. And yet, some of the Western travelers who have given an account of their encounter with Maharaja Gulab Singh, having lived in the state or while traveling towards Kashmir, the kind of conversation he has held about even astronomy and other subjects, spiritual subjects, the curiosity to know what is happening in the rest of the world, he was not an ordinary man. He treated everybody equally. It is known that his justice was one of the finest the state has ever had. You read Walter Lawrence and you will know what kind of justice was given to the Kashmiris by the Afghans. Mughals, I won't say. Mughals gave an excellent justice to the people of Kashmir, but not the Afghans.
Not the Sikhs either.
Yes, I would say that. I agree.
But on Dogras, you are saying he was partially repressive. You use the word.
I'm not saying partially repressive. No. Under the Dogras, no person was punished without.
You said partially repressive.
Sorry?
Only a few minutes back, you said partially repressive.
No, I didn't say partially repressive.
You used the word partial. When I put the question, you use the word partial.
No, I don't think I mentioned partial repression. No. So I would like to go back to that if I said that, because I don't recall. I, in fact, have written it very explicitly that under the Dogras, not a single person was punished without a trial.
I get your point and I completely understand your point of view. But why did the Muslims, especially Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah, if everything was hunky-dory, why did he rise against, revolt against Mr. Maharaja Hari Singh?
You see, let us look at it in a broader perspective. That was a time when things were changing all over the country, the subcontinent. Education had arrived. And as usually happens, education and opportunities of employment, they are always a mismatch. You have education, but the employment opportunities are not there. And then you think you are educated. You start thinking what kind of a system we are living in. And
so education, by this logic, education comes to Jammu and Kashmir in the times of Maharaja Hari Singh.
Maharaja
Why did
Pratap Singh.
Gulab Singh, Ranbir Singh, and Pratap Singh
Maharaja Pratap.
failed to give this education and these
get your point.
employment opportunities to the people in Jammu and Kashmir during their reign?
You see, look at the whole of the country. Where was the employment opportunity? Anywhere in the country, even under the British. You
So there
cannot
were
take
none
the same.
opportunities even under British.
Not really. Unemployment was still there, even under the British. You see, why did so many agitations, farmer agitations took place under the British? Under the British rule, where there was direct rule of the British. Because they were oppressive, because they were unjust. None of this happened in the J&K state. Maharaja Hari Singh, in fact, before things could erupt, before something could happen as far as the agricultural scene was concerned, he had initiated reforms. And all the reforms, mind you, they were in favor of the Muslims because tenants were Muslims.
But what about the shawl weavers who
No reform was in favor of the Hindus there.
What about the shawl weavers who had consistently been protesting against the Dogra Maharaja rule?
They began in the, yes, that I would agree, I would concede that point, that as far as the shawl weavers were concerned, they were never given a very fair deal. And
what about the taxes? What about the repressive taxes that had been imposed?
Which one? Which repressive taxes?
Taxes on everything. Everything was taxed under Maharaja.
No. Farmers had the best deal under Maharaja Hari Singh. Nobody has given, even his reforms were ahead of...
Mr. Harbans, hold on a bit. So you are telling me that there was no taxes under Maharaja rule in Jammu and Kashmir?
No, there were taxes. They were just taxes, as they happen everywhere. And I will concede one point, that looking at the era, we cannot judge 1920 from the knowledge and the exposure we have in 2024. And we shouldn't, that is unfair. We have to judge under the same context, the same conditions, which were prevalent all over the country, in all the states, even the British ruled states.
So coming back to our second edition, talk about Mr. Sheikh Abdullah. Why did he rose against
Maharaja this one?
Yeah. Sorry, this one. Yeah.
Second volume 2.
Second volume 2.
Yes.
So, what happened to Sheikh Abdullah? Why did he rise against Mr. Hari Singh?
The question is that look at the era. What were the forces which were rising? Mahatma Gandhi, he had emerged as the tallest leader, and along with him, many other leaders. The Muslims of the country, they were also not feeling very comfortable that what happens when the British leave, democracy will be there. If the democracy will be there, then one person, one vote, then what will happen to the Muslims of the subcontinent? So they were feeling uncomfortable, and hence Jinnah emerged. In the state, Kashmiris were feeling aggrieved. Whether they were justly aggrieved or not, that's a separate issue, but they were aggrieved, and their grievances were projected by Sheikh Abdullah. He had emerged as an undisputed Kashmiri leader, no doubt about that, no question about that. Now the question is that when you believe that you are leader of the people and your people do not need to be ruled by a non-Kashmiri and a Hindu at that, so what do? You oppose him. Sheikh Abdullah did exactly that. So that's the reason he rose against him. Simple reason, democracy was about to come. People could see, those who had that vision that things are going to change. And he was a leader of his people, and therefore he wanted a share of the power.
You said that it was not purely, but one of the factors in this was Hindu and Muslim.
Yes,
because he was the Hindu, he was the Muslim. Then, if it was about Hindu and Muslim in Jammu and Kashmir, why did there were few takers of Jinnah's Muslim League in Kashmir? Because when he did visit Jammu and Kashmir quite few times, he did not get that support.
Danish, we are entering in a very tricky situation now, tricky grounds rather. And I understand that. I'll give you only one example. I think that's in the third volume.
That's in the third one.
When Sheikh Abdullah had been released, third one. When Sheikh Abdullah had been released, and there were some parleys going on between the government of India and Sheikh Abdullah. After his release, he had visited Dr. Karan Singh in Delhi. They had a long conversation. Then again, the next day, Dr. Karan Singh had invited him and his family for lunch. And after lunch, during the lunch also, they had discussion. And what is shocking for me, and it was shocking for Karan Singh as well at that point of time, was that Sheikh Abdullah, he stuck with the point that the divide should be between Kashmir, Kishtwar, that is Chenab area. That is one unit of the state, and the rest, Kathua, Udhampur, and Jammu. These three districts, they are of the Dogras. So what does it mean? When was Punch or Riyasi or Kishtwar part of Kashmir? Give me any instance when it was part of Kashmir for a substantial length of time. It was never. So what was he thinking? What was he doing? What was he suggesting?
Are you, in other words, are you trying to say that Sheikh Abdullah basically had a communal mind?
Yes, I do say. I do say. But I will also say one thing. That nobody should be seen.
And Hari Singh was a secular.
Hari Singh was a secular. There's no doubt about that. His kitchen always had halal meat. And if anybody objected, he would simply say that you can have your food somewhere else, not in my kitchen, not in my household.
So he was a complete secular man.
I would say that. I would insist.
And who valued his citizens, all, including all the religions, as equals.
Yes, he did.
And
Malka Pukhraj has written, Malka Pukhraj in her autobiography, she has written this thing, that he even participated during the Namaz of Eid. He would stand there with the people.
And which was this year? Mr. Hari Singh participated in Eid Namaz.
No, this is one of the, I think, riddles for me, because Malka Pukhraj has not mentioned the years. That's the unfortunate part. It is an excellent autobiography of Malka Pukhraj, but there is no chronology. There is absolutely no mention of the year, what happened when. That's not there. But it's there.
So,
and this she wrote around in 1960. She had no reason to be kind to him.
So I just want to understand, when 1947 happens, if we see and if we go by history, both Hari Singh as well as Sheikh Abdullah, both of them wanted to have this independent state of Jammu and Kashmir. Both basically believed on those ideas. Why they could not work together to achieve this goal?
Number one, I do not believe that Hari Singh actually wanted an independent state.
He wanted a Dogristan and including the parts of Himachal Pradesh.
No, he never said that. He never used those words. He, for a while, I would concede this much. For a while, probably he thought that the state could be like Switzerland, a neutral state, nobody, not siding with any of either India or Pakistan, for a while. But then the kind of violence which took place in the rest of the country, that made him realize that this was not possible. So he had to side with India. Sheikh Abdullah, he also, I won't see him in black and white on this subject, that he wanted an independent state. he realized one thing, that he too, I think, realized that independence is out of the question. The best deal which he can have is not with Pakistan, but with India. And that is autonomy, a fair amount of autonomy. This is what he wanted. In the third volume, I have exhaustively mentioned this thing, that how the issue was not treated properly, how center bossed up, how constant interference in the affairs of the state, the desire to control it, that led to the tragedy which happened later on. Maharaja, I don't believe any of either of the two wanted independence.
Independence, I get it. But later after 47 and 53, if we look at these 6 years, Karan Singh and Sheikh Abdullah also could not make that team so that they could have worked together. Was there a trust deficit between the two?
Should I say, I wonder if I should say between the two, because Sheikh Abdullah never trusted him. He wanted him as a rubber stamp.
Okay.
He wanted him he wanted that he shouldn't even move out of his palace without his permission.
So Sheikh Abdullah basically wanted all the powers for himself.
Yes. That was it. I would say a flaw, a tragic flaw in the character of Sheikh Abdullah.
So
it was ideal.
Explain for me those 6 years, how Sheikh Abdullah was as an administrator.
Good and bad, both. Good in the sense that personally I support his land reforms. That was the best thing that could have happened. But he could have been a little bit sensitive towards those who were about to lose it. You cannot do just like that, ram reforms down the throat of people. That's not done. He did that. Karan Singh warned him also that it's not proper, because you cannot equate the land, say, even in Jammu region, the land in the lower part of Kathua and the Araspura and the land on the hills where there is water deficient area, and you expect that they should have the same holding. That is not possible. You cannot live on that kind of land. And ultimately what has happened, even today, the end result is this of those land reforms, which I support, was that the land has fragmented to such a degree that nobody can live on land now. Unless you have a job which brings you back to your home right in the evening at 5 o'clock, and in the morning you can look after the affairs of your fields. Otherwise, it's just not possible to survive on land. But I do support.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I do support his land reforms. The weakness of his administration was that it was arbitrary. There was no rule of law. A party official, a Tehsil president, could supersede the Tehsildar. And a party official is also the DC. But Rajbuli brought it out. He brought this thing to the notice of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru also, that this is how the administration is being run. And he did not realize that this is not communism. It is a democratic state.
So, explain to me happenings of 1953. Was it necessary to arrest him?
Reading whatever material I could lay my hands on, I think it was. Because he was dangerous.
There are two aspects of it. One, to throw him out of power. Second, to arrest him. So, are you saying
if he had not been,
or only one was important?
If he had only been removed, then there would have been uprising in the valley. Let's make no mistake about it. He was popular.
So arrest him was necessary.
Arrest was necessary. Without arresting, even Bakshi would not have agreed to become the prime minister.
So there are many theories floating around. Was Nehru of know-how of this
He was.
plan?
Yes.
Who gave the orders to arrest him? Was it Bakshi or was it Nehru?
Bakshi ordered this thing that he wasn't in a position. Orders had to be given by Yuvraj Karan Singh. But Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru knew.
And he gave the explicit permission.
Abu Kalam Azad knew. And Kidwai knew.
Knowing things was one thing, but where from the orders came? Who gave the orders to arrest?
Karan Singh, Sadr Riyasat gave.
That is the administrative part. But did it come from Nehru?
Of course, Nehru, the concurrence of Nehru was there. Without his concurrence, it couldn't have been done.
So it was necessary to remove him.
It was necessary to remove and to arrest.
Both the things.
Both.
And how do you see Bakshi's 10 years till 63?
For me, I'm always surprised that why was he so much derided by the people? As a youngster, I remember there used to be many jokes about Bakshi Ghulam Muhammad. But in the end, now I realize that the reason was that he did not belong to that class of elite people, educated people. The class of Ghulam Muhammad Sadiq.
But even Sheikh was not from an elite class.
He was a man of the streets. He was a practical man. I wonder whether I have written or not, but I was narrating an incident yesterday to somebody that a young person approached him for a job, and he looked at him, talked to him, and then took a piece of paper and he wrote on that piece of paper, so and so, पढ़ा लिखा हट्टा कट्टा नौजवान है, इसको ATI assistant traffic inspector भर्ती कर लिया जाए. So this kind of administration made him popular amongst the people, that he solved the problem then and there immediately.
So this is
whether that was the proper thing to do or not, that's another thing. But the thing is that he was able to win over Jammu also, which was very important at that point of time, because I still believe that this problem which we have been facing in the state is not a Kashmir problem. It is a Kashmir-Jammu problem. When I say Jammu and Kashmir problem, then that becomes confusing. So I use the word in the reverse order. There is a Kashmir-Jammu problem. There has to be balance between the two. Jammu cannot forget that it has created the state. Jammu was the creator. Jammu was a state which existed, and then it incorporated Ladakh, and then part of Baltistan, and later Jammu and Kashmir Valley. So Jammu cannot forget this thing. That is part of their psyche. You cannot help it. I know this. And Kashmir, being Kashmir, it is the crown. There's no doubt about that. There are so many good things coming from that place. So they also think that we are very superior. So the art is to create a balance between the two.
Between Jammu and Kashmir. Rather, yes. Between Kashmir and Jammu.
Kashmir and Jammu.
No one wants to lose his identity. Anyone wants to leave his ego.
Yeah, no. That's true.
I completely understand Mr. Harbans Singh. So I must take this opportunity to thank you and to show your 3 volumes on Kashmir once again for the viewers, for the watchers who watch this series, who watch this program, so that they buy all the 3 volumes and they do read and comprehend them very much. And I thank you once again, Mr. Harbans, for being part of this. Thank you very
My
much
pleasure.
for talking to
My
me.
pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Harbans.
Please subscribe to our channel Reportage and press the bell icon to remain updated.